I'm just gonna go ahead and say that most of this video is going to be unscripted, so if it gets really rambly, that's why. As the title suggests, anime has dramatically helped my mental health over the past few years, so I want to share that experience with others and just be open and honest for a bit. It all kind of started back in high school. I started watching anime, and it was already a really tumultuous time because I went through a lot of bullying in high school, which I think is kind of a common thing that some people go through, especially if you're in the more nerdy realm like I am. It's always been a thing of oh, you like Legos, or you like Star Wars or Marvel or whatever. And not that I didn't have any friends who were into those things, but it was still something that was very rough to go through. There was also a lot of unnecessary family drama. So now that we've kind of set the stage, where does anime come in? Well, I started with Dragon Ball Z. I started watching that with my uncle, which was really great. And it kind of made me want to watch more, but I still wasn't completely sold on anime. And then he's the one who recommended that I watch My Hero Academia, which I then proceeded to binge through in a week and a half. The 3.5 seasons that were out, or no, it was just 3 seasons. I forget how long it's been since then. But My Hero, I now have an emotional attachment to this show. It was kind of one of those, I don't know if anyone else has a right place, right time type show where it just kind of came in at the as I said, right place, right time. Because all of the themes in the series, and with Deku especially, were very relatable and very poignant to what I was going through. Because one, there was a lot of bullying, but there was also this aspect of I was getting towards the end of high school, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I really wanted to go to film school. That was my big oh, I want to go to film school, I want to do this. And pretty much everyone in my life, except for my mom has always been in my corner, which is super awesome, basically said, no, you can't go to film school. You need to go get a real job, go do something productive with your life. And that was super demoralizing. And I know I say that with a smile on my face. Humor is my coping mechanism. I just want to get that out there. Deku's journey of being able to push through that and still get to do what he wanted to do and overcome that really helped get me through, and really was hey, even though everyone says you can't, you still can. It also was really a escape from reality, as most media has been my whole life, and just giving me an opportunity to get out and get away. And when things were too stressful at school or work or home or whatever, I could just come home, sit down, watch My Hero. Even when I finished it, I think I started rewatching it because I just liked it that much. And I mean, I would rewatch fights, rewatch clips, rewatch the openings, listen to the music. It was all this big cumulative thing that just got me through a really rough time, which also branched into the My Hero manga, because at the end of high school-ish, I went through my first major breakup, which isn't a super big deal for most people, but for me, it was a big deal. It was world shattering to me. In the grand scheme of things, it really wasn't. It was not that big a deal, but in the moment, right? Just bear with me. In the moment, it was a really big deal, and it was hard. So what did I turn to but the My Hero Academia manga, which this probably is partially the video I wanted to make, was just why My Hero means so much to me, because it's going to keep coming up throughout this video, is the significance that My Hero has played in my life and getting me through these dark points. So to go out of this relationship into, at the time, my low point, my darkest time. Yeah, okay, good job being a little over exaggerated. To go through what then became my favorite arc in the entire series of the Overhaul arc and the school festival arc, and I just kept following the manga and eventually got caught up, and that was kind of how high school ended. It was okay, could have been better. My senior year of high school was whack, because about halfway through, guess what popped up but coronavirus, which I know was a rough time for a lot of people. That is kind of the collective shared experience that everyone in my generation has, is COVID is this thing that came out of nowhere and completely flipped the world upside down. And when COVID started, I started watching a lot more anime. Like, I'd been watching anime and it was like kind of interspliced with the other stuff that I was watching. But this is where anime kind of like took over and started becoming the main thing that I watched. And my big quarantine anime was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I watched parts 1 through 4 in like 2 weeks because I had nothing to do. I was at home. But the bigger thing here was I started watching a lot more anime because it became one of the loneliest times in my entire life, which I'll come back to. The actual loneliest is later on. But it was just this time where I had a lot of friends in high school, and I had a lot of friends like at church and work and all of these other places. And then COVID was really rough because we were in the process of moving. I'm not a big change person. Like, I don't do change very well. It's been mentioned by my therapist multiple times that I just don't like change, which, I mean, who does? Really? Like, but this was a lot of change all at once because it was COVID, which shut everything down, and then we're moving, and then we're moving again, and you're changing jobs, and now you have no friends, and all your friends are online, but all your friends graduated high school, and now they don't want to talk to you because they're moving on to much bigger things, and you're moving away, and like all of this inconsistency and all of this change was not very helpful, and it was very isolating and lonely, and I only had 2 or 3 like really close friends, but they were all on my phone. They were all like, oh, let's FaceTime, let's jump on Discord, let's I don't know, record a podcast, I guess, which that is another thing, not anime related, but the Nerdiest podcast is something I started in COVID. Like, it was a little before, but it really ramped up in COVID because we didn't have anything to do. So that's kind of where that's at. So I guess I'm not going to thank COVID. That was a terrible thing, and I'm not. No, but you get the point of, like, without COVID, the podcast probably wouldn't be where it's at now because we wouldn't have had any reason to start it. But yeah, anime in this tumultuous change period was really helpful because it gave me, much like before, it gave me the opportunity to escape, and in a really dark and depressing time. And I mean, if you want to lump in 2020, if you live in the US, you'll remember how awful and frustrating and stressful the 2020 election was. It doesn't matter which side you were on. I'm not here to get political, but the 2020 election sucked on both ends. It was needlessly stressful. It was both sides just screaming at each other for no reason. And in a really dark, depressing, and just insane year, having anime to be able to turn on, I'm gonna watch JoJo's Part 5 and watch some guys from the Italian Mafia beat up this other guy from a different Italian Mafia, or what was another one I watched in 2020? I kept watching Attack on Titan, which, I mean, maybe not the best anime to watch when things are dark and depressing. I mean, the My Hero manga was continuing, so I was always reading that. I read through the first war arc, which was really nice that every Sunday there was just this one consistent thing. And I think that's something that anime has been a lot of times for me, is this consistent thing. Is there's always a consistent anime, even if it's My Hero, Demon Slayer, whatever. It's this consistent thing that I can come back to that isn't changing. And even if it does have a big change, it's still My Hero. It's still Attack on Titan. It's still, I hadn't watched Love is War yet. We're getting there though. Long story short, as I kind of keep moving through this journey of the last 4 or 5 years, I guess, anime is it's a consistency that I desperately needed in life when things were consistently changing. So that moves into, in 2020 and like 2021, I started college, which was great. Got to go to film school. Super cool. Except for the fact that we moved again. So we moved twice in 2020, which wasn't supposed to happen. A lot of things weren't supposed to happen in 2020. We moved twice, so I had no friends, aside from the ones, like I mentioned, that were on my phone, which was really sad because those people also had their own lives and their own things to do, and they couldn't hang out with me all the time. Like, that was probably the hardest part, was that I had this expectation of, well, you guys can just hang out all the time, right? No, because they all had school or work or other stuff that like they couldn't hang out. And it was difficult for me because I was doing college from home. I did my first 6 months online, so I was at home. So it's not like I had like college friends yet. So that was rough for a little bit. Eventually I moved down to where the college was at in Florida, and I moved down there, which was a completely different state. So we're changing again. We're doing change again. I still spent a lot of time at home because I had a long commute from where I was staying to campus, because where I was staying was rent free. So like if you balance out what you'd be paying in rent versus gas and time, it kind of balanced out and it was whatever. Because of that, I was very antisocial, and I'm kind of introverted by nature. So it was really hard for me to make friends. So I did spend a lot of time sitting at home watching anime. And dude, I binged through anime like no one's business. I watched, in like the span of a week, I watched Gurren Lagann, Akame ga Kill, Kill la Kill, and Cowboy Bebop in a week because I was just sitting at home doing nothing. Like, I'd finished all my class assignments. I didn't have any friends to do anything with. So I just stayed home and watched anime. It was good and it was bad because it was good because it, like I've said multiple times, really provided that consistency to just have an escape from like all of the stressful, like, oh, I'm in a different state away from my family, which was the first time I'd ever done that. I don't really have any friends to go be socially interactive with, so I can kind of encapsulate myself in this anime and hope for the best, I guess. And that was really something. And it changed about halfway through because I eventually moved closer to campus because classes were becoming more frequent. It just wasn't feasible to drive an hour to and from class every day when I had to be there at like 7 a.m. So, and it was like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Like there were 12-hour days. Like I can't be that far away. So I moved like 10 minutes away from campus, and that's when I really started making friends, some of which I'm still friends with to this day, which is usually how college goes. But I started making friends, hanging out with them, and that kind of fixed the social aspect, but it was still like this really weird loneliness aspect too of, I mean, I have friends to hang out with and we can talk about anime, but we're together all the time. And like, it was a band-aid on a much bigger issue that I kind of still haven't gotten over. Spoiler alert, college was fine. I was still watching anime. I was watching anime at a much more rapid pace because all my friends were into anime. So we're like, all right, well, what shows are we watching? We're watching Dress Up Darling and Attack on Titan, Demon Slayer. I remember we all were like watching Demon Slayer season 2 together, and because the episodes came out on Sunday and we'd have class on Monday, so we'd all like watch it Sunday, and then Monday morning we'd like get together and discuss the episode. Same for Attack on Titan. Attack on Titan was airing at that time, and like it was just this link for me to talk and communicate with my friends and like have that social interaction outside of like, oh, we're all in the same film class, like we should do this, whatever. College was great until the very end, which this is probably maybe the darkest part of the video. Sorry. College was great until the end, and by end, I legitimately mean last month. Like, our classes were by a month-to-month basis, which kind of gives away the school, but I'm not like, I graduated from there. I'm not still there. Like, I don't even live in the state anymore, so come find me, I guess. Please don't show up at my door. That would be really weird. In our last month of classes, legitimately, I remember it so vividly. It's like been 2 years, which is crazy to me that how long that's been. It's been 2 years since then, and I still remember it so vividly, and this like sent me into a downward spiral like I've never seen before, which will kind of set the foundation for the rest of the video. Is last month, so we were starting our first day, so it was our last first day. We were all really excited, like we're gonna graduate at the end of the month, we're gonna go like get to work in the film industry, it's gonna be great, have our big final like senior project, it's gonna be awesome. Till we found out later that day that one of our closest friends had passed away over the weekend, and it was really shocking, and for me it was very hard because I had never gone through anything like that before. I mean, it's not like I've never lost people. Like I've had great grandparents pass away, and I've been around people who have lost other people, but this was like such a personal experience because this was a person who I'd spent the last year interacting with. I mean, he came over to my apartment. We carpooled together, like went out after classes. Like this was a friend. Like it wasn't just a grandparent I see every now and then, or like a relative that's really distant. I don't really know you. This was like a really close person. And I was there because we had all gone like to check on him in his apartment because we hadn't heard from him. And being there is something I'll never forget. I've worked through it and like been able to get through that trauma and just all of those feelings that I don't really have words for, but it's still something you don't really ever get over. Like you learn how to process and handle it, but you never really get over it. And I remember we all didn't really know what to do. So we kind of just grouped up and sat in silence for a while. And then eventually someone started a conversation and we started talking. And then towards the end of the day, I went back home and I didn't call or speak to anyone for the rest of the day. Like I laid there and I watched anime for the rest of the day. And I'm talking like I was home at noon. So from noon until like midnight when I went to bed, I couldn't even tell you what anime I was watching. Like it was just this brain off consume. Not even like knowing what I'm consuming. I picked something random on Crunchyroll and just hit play and it kept auto playing the episodes. I slept through some of them. I brain off. Like I don't remember what I did the rest of the day. Like that's how much my brain just turned off. And that event is what triggered this downward spiral that will essentially be the foundation for the rest of this video. It was, as I mentioned, really rough, but we did finish college, did the whole graduation thing. It was like this pseudo happiness almost of like, we were really excited to graduate, but also had this underlying of like, there's another person who was supposed to be here graduating with us. So once that was over, I moved again. I moved back home and I basically had to start over again, which is like the fourth time I've had to do this, which was so hard because what was also difficult is when I moved from home, I didn't have any friends here, which was fine. Like in the short term, that felt like it was okay for me. But then coming back, I was like, well, I have nothing to come back to. So it was just friends on my phone yet again. And I think this is the only time when I've ever been able to say that I was genuinely depressed. Like there have been times where I'm like, oh, I'm just kind of sad or I'm in a funk or whatever. This was like genuine depression though. And it didn't start that way, but it built up and got there. And I could not find a job to save my life, which going through interview after interview after interview and not getting any of those jobs was super demotivating. And it was very crushing of like, you get really excited for the interview and then you flunk it and you don't get it. I was always anxious, stressed, and feeling isolated. I spent a lot of my time after those initial interview runs and applications just sitting in my room playing video games, watching anime. And I mean, I buried myself in a lot of different media at that time, but the one that like really pulled me through was Kaguya-sama Love is War, which I kind of mentioned a little earlier in the video that I hadn't gotten to it. Well, now we're to it. Love is War, I was really hard on this show at first and I felt bad and I gave it another chance and it was, I don't even know what to say. It was a show that I will forever love and cherish. One, because it's incredibly good. It's a fantastic show, but also gave me the ability to not just escape. It wasn't just escaping reality anymore. It wasn't just trying to fix something or like giving me a way out. It was giving me the ability to laugh and be happy in a time when there wasn't really any of that. I mean, to be honest, it was really depressing outside of that show. And I was just really anxious, and I had a lot of built-up anxiety, which I'll get to why in a second. Love is War was so phenomenal at doing that I still have, and I made a playlist on YouTube called Anti-Anxiety, and it was just clip compilations of Love is War and the different like English dub and compiling all the best moments of the dub, and like just whenever I got super anxious, that playlist went on. It didn't matter what video it was just that playlist went on, and I watched those videos and I was just laughing, and I was very nice to have the ability to smile, and it's always the little things that you find like enjoyment in, and that was one of them. But Love is War was not a cure-all, because things kind of just kept getting worse and going on a downward trajectory. It felt like everything in life was falling apart. Like everything. I had no job. My long-term relationship wasn't working out. It was beyond toxic. Like I had multiple people saying, hey, you definitely shouldn't be in that relationship. You should try to get out of that if you can. And I really did. And I just never got anywhere with it. And it was so bad that like, after every phone call, I was kind of like just depressed and anxious and not great. But whenever it was over, I would just turn on anime. I would just turn on something. And this is kind of the turning point where I think anime became more detrimental for a period. Instead of help, like it was helping in the sense of I was still able to escape and just kind of have this nice entertaining media that could give me a bit of brevity in a really dark and depressing time. What really ended up happening was it more became a crutch than anything else, and I wasn't using it. I was using it as an excuse, and it became very detrimental to, well, I'm not going to do this so I can watch anime. I'm not going to do that so I can watch anime. I'm not going to, go to church on Sunday so I can stay home and watch anime. Like it started becoming this detrimental obsession that wasn't very healthy, because I was projecting other things onto it. Like it was a coping mechanism for getting off the phone with my now ex-girlfriend, but at the time girlfriend, instead of dealing with what was going on and trying to like confront that head on and move through it and work past it. It was I'm just gonna watch anime and I'm just gonna forget. I'm just not gonna worry about it. No, we're not gonna do anything with it. And that's where things kind of took a turn. So there wasn't like any specific anime that period. My Hero was back, so that was nice because I had that scattered throughout the week because it was My Hero episodes on Saturday, chapters on Sundays. Everything kind of changed in January of 2023, and I think this is probably the lowest I've ever gone, where I finally like got the courage to end my long-term relationship, but it was good because I was out of the toxicity, but it was like also depressing because you just broke up, so there's a lot of feelings there. And we had also been friends for a long time, so it wasn't just 3 years of dating, it was also like 7 or 8 years of being friends that all just kind of disappeared. And she was like my closest friend, so whenever I had like this video idea or just wanted to like talk to someone, like it was losing your best friend. It was losing my best friend, which was rough, so that was bad. But then I also had a job opportunity that I was really excited about, felt like I did really good in the interview, and then I found out like the next day after breaking up with her that I didn't get the job, so that was kind of a double whammy there. And then all of that under foundationed on all of the grief and guilt from my friend who had passed away a couple months ago. So all of this kind of just spiraled together to be a really nasty combination. And it was at this point that I decided I should probably go back to counseling, which I did. I've been in counseling for a year and a half now, and it has been some of the most helpful stuff I've ever done. Just having this impartial third party to help process through stuff. Like, we spent weeks going through relationship stuff, weeks going through all of the like grief, and that kind of helped more so than anything to just get everything out there. Another like aspect of My Hero, bringing that back in, because I know this video is titled like, let me talk about anime, but it's also like, there's a lot more to it than just that, is at the time I was going through all of this counseling and working through stuff was the Dark Hero arc of the anime. Even though I'd already read through it in the manga, it was going through the anime, and like this time where I felt super isolated and like I didn't have any friends and didn't have anyone to interact with and anyone to socialize with. And Deku also going through that of like this isolating, no friends, I'm going to carry all of the burdens, not just my personal burdens, but I'm going to carry everyone's and not get help from anywhere. But then also, like, if you've watched it, you know, Class 1A comes alongside him and is like, hey, let us help you. Let us share in that. Like, you don't have to carry all of this by yourself. That was perfectly timed for me, because that's exactly what I was going through. As I kind of alluded to, that's exactly what I was going through of, I'm just going to self-isolate, do everything myself. It's fine. I was working on a podcast with my college friends, and I kind of like, again, instead of dealing with everything that was kind of coming at me head on, I just kind of hunkered down and was like, okay, well, I'm going to do everything. And I started doing everything for this podcast because I was the only one who was unemployed. Everyone else had jobs and like had stuff to do with their day, and I didn't. So I was like, all right, well, I'll edit this video and do this thumbnail and do this short and edit this episode, and I'm going to plan everything, and like just clumping everything together. And as that was happening in the anime, I got to the point where I was like, I just can't keep doing this by myself. And that is when I started to get friends who came alongside me and was like, hey, let us help you. You don't have to do this by yourself. All of that coupled with the counseling, it really helped, because I was getting all of that heavy stuff off my chest, and it felt like I was able to move, and like there was a weight lifted off my shoulders. And at this point is where I like started to get things, like started to pull my life back together from this really depressing state of like, let's do something, right? So while anime didn't solve all of the issues I had, what it did do is it gave me this outlet to process. And like, along with the counseling, it gave me the ability to kind of see things on the screen and understand what was happening and relate to these characters, like the Dark Hero arc, and be able to see that in my own life while also still being that like entertaining escape. Oh, it's going to make you laugh. Oh, it's going to make you like happy, excited. You're going to get invested in fights or whatever. And it was kind of like those two things coming together. But I also saw these characters like Deku and Tanjiro, and I mean, I don't have any other examples, but they're there of like all these characters who, instead of buckling down and not facing their problems, they kind of, even though it was very hard and very difficult, still walked forward and kept pushing on through it, which then made me also want to do that. So at this point, things are kind of starting to get better. I finally was like, okay, you know what? No job, no problem. I need to get my act together. Like, I need to start pulling myself together, which is exactly what I did. And it started with very simple stuff of like, I'm not going to stay up super late. I'm going to set an alarm for 8 o'clock in the morning so I can get up, which is still kind of late if like nowadays based on the hours I work. But like, I'm going to set an alarm for 8 and I'm going to get up and eat and shower and be productive for a couple hours and like go to the gym. I'm going to go ride my bike, just take a walk outside. That was something I did that was really, really nice, of just, I'm going to walk outside for a little bit, get some fresh air, see the sun, like that kind of stuff. It was all very small and simple stuff. Or like, I'm going to plan out my day. I started getting a lot more intentional and involved in the young adult community and group at my church, and like starting to kind of branch out and make those connections and make those friends, because I was like, I can't just keep sitting here and doing nothing. I have to do something, because I'm watching all these characters who are awesome and I love and relate to them, but I'm not meeting the standard. I'm not continuing on like they do. Like, I mean, you see Deku face these giant villains and you're like, well, what's my equivalent of a giant villain, you know? Seeing anime characters do this stuff gave me a relatability, and I was like, okay, gotta do something. So I started doing stuff, and anime really helped showcase this, like, when your back is up against the wall, and even when like it's really hard and you don't want to continue on, you kind of have to. You need to continually keep moving forward and confront all of these issues head on, which is something I'm still learning how to do and like still working on myself, because it's not something that got solved in one day. This was a multiple month-long process. It wasn't like I just miraculously got up and, oh, now I'm super in shape at the gym and, you know, got all these friends at church. Like, it was and still is this ongoing process of making an effort every day and making a conscious effort. It's not like anime was the only thing that got me through it, but it was very helpful. And I was able to realize that anime was becoming more of a detriment, and that was kind of what knocked me into like, oh, I need to do something. I need to like pull myself back together, you know? It was just so helpful. And that's kind of my advice to other people, which I'm going to get to more a little bit later, is like, don't let anime become a detriment. There's nothing wrong with watching anime and using it as an escape from drama, depression, like whatever you're going through. It's fine to have a form of media that you enjoy. There's nothing wrong with that. I still have, like, if I'm having a rough day, yeah, I'm gonna turn on one of those Love is War dub clip videos, but don't let it become an excuse to not face and confront those things. And that was one of the bigger things I learned in this period of time. So I know that turned into a really rambly storytime video, and anime, like I've said multiple times, has always been an escape from reality and these big, like, fantastical worlds that can just encapsulate and entertain you for all of this great amount of time, but also help me relate and get through some of the toughest times of my life so far. As much as I've mentioned My Hero, I can't forget to mention the Demon Slayer manga specifically, because I started reading that right after my friend passed away, and just, there's these pieces of media like My Hero and Demon Slayer that, or like, if you want to go outside of anime just a little bit, Xenoblade 3 and Doki Doki Literature Club and Tears of the Kingdom, like all of these pieces of media that I just came in at the right time and encapsulated something I was going through. And Demon Slayer gave me enough motivation to push through that last month. And it also gave me something like, I had a rough day at school. I'm gonna come home and read another volume, read another chapter. Like, I don't know if you can see them. They're all back there on the shelf. I have all the volumes now. But like, just having that joy and escape, even though it's manga and it's not anime. I know the video was titled anime, but I wanted to include that. And like, there's these pieces of media that I get attached to in a way, and why do you think My Hero is my favorite anime of all time? Like, I love it. Yes, I think it's a great show, but also it's just, I'm emotionally attached to it. And that's never gonna not be a factor in why I love it so much. So there's that. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention Weathering with You, because that played a massive role towards the end, because one, it's my favorite movie of all time. So whenever I feel like I need time to relax or just chill and watch a movie, Weathering with You is one of my first picks. But I can also definitely relate to Hodaka in that movie, because the whole movie kind of centers around him running away from home in this suffocating life and this, all of these problems that he doesn't want to face head on. But then by the end of the movie, he kind of does have to go back and face those things and do things in the right order. You can't just leave without finishing high school, and like, you have to do them in the right order. Ultimately, having to turn around and overcome that is really huge. So, and then last but not least, I also want to shout out all of the friends and family who came alongside me during that time, because I definitely could not have done it without their support or encouragement or any of that. Because yes, anime played a big role, and I'll touch on this in a second. It wasn't the end all be all, and it clearly didn't fix. And as I've explained, it became a bit more detrimental. Having those people to just come alongside you and say, hey, how are you doing today? Did you go to the gym today? Did you whatever? Like, that was super helpful, and I'm super grateful and thankful that I've been blessed with so many people who did that during that time. So couldn't have done it without them. All right, I'm gonna go back on script here for just a little bit. The whole reason I made this video was actually because of something I saw on Twitter. It was brought to my attention that June, which is presumably when this video is going out, is Men's Mental Health Month. And I usually don't get caught up in like the whole, this month is this thing and this month is that thing, because I think it can be kind of silly and pointless and kind of, I don't know. But this one kind of struck a chord with me because, as you've heard in this video, it's something that I've always struggled with. I felt led to share my experience and just be open, because I know there are guys out there who struggle with a lot more than I do and don't say anything. So I hope that kind of just me being out there and open encourages you that you're not alone, and that even though it can get really, really dark, and I know how that feels, that like loneliness, loss of motivation, and just all of that cuts deep, and I get it. And just, I want you to know that it will get better. And there are ways for it to get better. And it's not like, I don't want to say it's not that hard, because it can be really hard for some people. And I know that firsthand, because I spent a lot of time not doing anything about it. So I lied. We're not going back on script. I'm very much winging it right now. Maybe anime is your escape, like it was and kind of still is for me. But as I said earlier in the video, something I had to be careful of doing was not, or had to be careful of not doing, was making anime an idol or becoming obsessed with it and just focusing only on anime and using anime as that excuse to not confront the things that are difficult. Like I said, different levels of difficulty for everyone. It's not as easy as just, I'm gonna do this thing, but maybe there are like some smaller practical ways to do it. And because I saw anime becoming more of a detriment than a helper of my mental health, that's why I started, I'm gonna go get plugged in at church with the young adults. I'm gonna go start working out. I'm gonna make some more friends and be more intentional with my time. And maybe it is just something as simple as making a daily schedule. Even if you work, even if you have a job and you're not unemployed like I was, maybe it's something as simple as I'm gonna get up a half hour earlier and do a quick little workout before I go to work. And like, just having something consistent and like having that was very helpful for me. And I can't obviously speak to anyone else's circumstance because they are so different. And that was just kind of my intention in making the video, was to be open and share my experience and hope that some people can relate to it. And maybe that gives you encouragement to go out and try better, or not try better, but like try and attempt to get better, because the most you can really do is just take it one day at a time, one step at a time. Don't worry about what's happening at the end of the week. Just, you got today. So what are you going to do today? And that is something I try to live by. Not saying I don't like, oh, what am I going to do on Friday? I have like, oh, I'm going to record a podcast or something like that. But I'm not overly concerned about it. And I'm like, okay, what can I do today? I can work out, I can record this video, I can script, I can do whatever. Those are the kind of things that you can do to take a step in the right direction. And also just having a solid group of guys to share in life with, because they can encourage and uplift you. And that was kind of the point of the Dark Hero arc. And what I learned was having people to surround you and help you and share in this crazy life makes it so much more helpful. I actually joined, my church had a life group that was just for like young adult guys. And I joined that, and that was also super helpful in addition to all of the other things I was doing, like anime and counseling and, all this other stuff, because it was just a solid group of guys who I could talk to and confide in and be like, hey, here's what I'm struggling with this week. Hey, here's how my life's going. And then they can uplift and encourage me. And then in turn, I can do the same for them when they are down. So like just having a solid group of guys, like I'm not saying you only have to have guy friends. I'm not going to be that guy. Having people who can understand your situation and just really help you get through life, because doing it alone, no one was ever intended to do life alone. That was never the intention from the beginning. There was always supposed to be a helper or someone to share in life with you and have that companionship. So I know a lot of that didn't really have to do with anime, but I did want to share those other things that helped me get through it, because I can't attribute everything to anime, nor can I say anime is what saved me from this time, because it really wasn't. It was a piece of a larger puzzle that kind of helped, or it was like a part of a bigger machine, if you will, that helped get me through that. So yes, anime had a big role in that, but it was not the only thing. And I don't want people to get the wrong idea and just say, well, I'm just going to watch anime now because that helped Nick get through his time. No, anime was there. It was a very helpful thing, and I'm very thankful and grateful that I had My Hero, Demon Slayer, Fullmetal Alchemist, like all these shows that I watched, Love is War, but those weren't the only things. So I just want to make that very abundantly clear. And, you know, honestly, as I kind of get close to the end here, I want to say, hey, if you're not a guy, or even if you are, I'm not judging, feel free to just reach out and ask your friends, even regardless of, you know, if they're a guy or a girl, just reach out and ask people how they're doing. As someone who benefited and like just having someone, even if it was someone I hadn't talked to in weeks, months, just reach out and say, hey, how you doing? How's life going? That meant a lot to me. Like that, just the fact that someone was thinking about me enough to send a text or send an Instagram DM or a Twitter DM or whatever, and just say, hey, how's life going? How you doing? Even if you don't even have to respond with like a super deep thing of like, oh, well, my life's going terrible. It could just be like, hey, I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. I'm still doing good. That, you know, or you can like, that can be an open conversation of like, hey, I'm not doing that great. So, you know, so it means a lot to people when you check in on them. And I think it's something that we should probably start doing more. And if you're the one sending it, it doesn't have to be super complicated. It doesn't have to be like an essay on like, tell me in 6 paragraphs why your life is terrible. Just be like, hey, you were on my mind, was thinking about you today. Just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. Hope you have a great day. Could be that simple. And that really could mean a lot to someone. So I would highly encourage you to also do that, because it's something super simple that everyone can do. And you might just brighten up someone's day. I do that all the time. I have a handful of friends who are on my contact list who I make an effort at least once a month to check in on them and see how they're doing. And I've gotten multiple texts that say, hey, it was really nice to know you were thinking about me. And I really appreciate that. So that was just something I wanted to hone in on here at the end, because everyone struggles with something. Everyone has their own battles that they fight. Everyone has their own things that they go through. Your experience is most likely very different from mine, or maybe it's very similar. I don't know. But that is something that is kind of universally we can do, is just say, hey, how you doing? Want to check in? And I'll do that right now. If you're watching this video and you made it this far, hey, how you doing? Hope you have a great day. If you want to respond in the comments, feel free. Comments are open to do whatever you feel so led to do, but I will extend that question to everyone who's watching this video. How are you doing? Hope you're having a great day, and just keep going, because even if life doesn't look great right now, it'll get better and you'll get through it. So that being said, I do hope you found this video enjoyable, since it is very off of the beaten path of what I normally do content wise. This is an outlier, and it's a video that I really wanted to make because mental health is something that I've always struggled with. I've had numerous friends who have, and it's just something I feel passionate and I want to talk about and share that experience with others, because I do think it's a very important thing that kind of goes overlooked in at least Western society. I can't speak about anything else because I live in America, and of course in America, that's all that matters. Not really, but you get the joke. So I had a lot of fun making it. It was a great time to just sit down, and I hope you feel encouraged to go do your best. Get out there. Do that thing that you've always wanted to do. And like, if you really just want to go back to the gym, start small. Or if you really wanted to just take a run outside, go ride a bike. I don't know. Just go for it. So feel free to check out some of the other content on the channel that is definitely more anime-centric. I have a lot of great content coming out. So subscribe if you like it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.